What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. If you thought the war in Ukraine was already a brutal grind of missiles, drones, endless political theater, well, guys, buckle up. Because the last few days have been a masterclass in both high-tech distraction and a low-trust diplomacy. On one side, Ukraine is hitting Russian military infrastructure deeper and deeper, 1,300 kilometers into enemy territory this time, blowing up Shahed drone stockpiles, missile component factories, and oil refineries like they're just some kind of a checking items of a grocery list. On the other, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are setting up a so-called peace summit in Alaska that's shaping up to be less about peace and more about who can pocket the biggest concessions while Ukraine's actual voice is shoved into the corner. And just think about it. Peace talks with only one side missing completely. What kind of peace talks are even talking about? What are those? Meanwhile, the Russian drone war machine keeps spewing death into Ukraine's skies every single night, forcing Kyiv to invent cheaper, faster, more creative ways to kill incoming drones. Because relying on 4 million Patriot missiles to knock off $50,000 Shaheds is the kind of math that bankrupt countries. Add to that the battlefield where Ukrainian soldiers are hanging on the face of manpower shortages and relentless Russian assaults. And now you've got a week that perfectly sums up this war. Distraction, desperation, and diplomacy that smells like a trap. Let's get straight into it, one topic at a time. When Ukrainian drone slams into a Russian target, it's usually somewhere you can point to on a map and recognize familiar places. Belgorod, Kursk, Bryansk, Tula, Moscow, Sochi. Well, not this time. This time, the security service of Ukraine sent a Lutey drone, the same model responsible for shredding Russian oil refineries hundreds of kilometers inside the border. This time it sent it deep into Tatarstan, almost 1,300 kilometers from Ukraine. The target? A Shahed storage facility staffed with ready-to-use attack drones and foreign-made components, sitting in the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, a key cog in Russia's drone war machine. Within hours, black smoke rushed into the sky, the kind of smoke that says that's millions of dollars in weapons now simply gone. And this was not just another lucky strike, like a lot of Russian propaganda can claim. It was a strategic chess move. Russia's Shahed network churns out over 5,000 of these Iranian-designed kamikaze drones every month. That is a constant swarm of over 100 per night, while still having enough leftovers to build up reserves for those massive barrages of 500 plus drones when they unleash to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses from time to time. The Alabuga zone is the beating heart of that production, and Ukraine just took a massive swing at it. The message is crystal clear. Nowhere in Russia is untouchable anymore. Not your oil refineries, not your military plants, not even your most secure drone bunkers. Looks like one of that air defense systems that Putin has dozens of guarding his dacha in Sochi could have been useful somewhere else, right? But no. Oaks, pine trees, abandoned dacha with spider webs where Putin didn't even shop for several months, and man-made salmon lake. Well, apparently it's more important, it seems. But anyways. Tatarstan was not the only Russian headache this week. Just days later, Ukrainian drones struck Arzamas instrument building plant in Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, another 750 plus kilometers reach from Ukraine. This was not just any industrial site. It's where Russia built gyroscopes, control systems, and onboard computers for cruise missiles, like Ha-32 and Ha-101, the same missiles that hammer Ukrainian cities weekly. 4 drones ripped into the facility, killing 1, injuring 2, and smashing more than just concrete. The plant is sanctioned by the European Union, the US, Ukraine, and even New Zealand, but sanctions do not stop missile parts from rolling off the line. Explosives do. For Ukraine, these deep strikes are not just symbolic. Every destroyed Shahed, every dismantled missile component plant is one less weapon aimed at civilian apartments in Odessa or power plants in Kharkiv. And every time a drone reaches this deep into Russian territory, it chips away at the Kremlin's carefully curated illusion that the war is a distant inconvenience, not something that can set their own backyards on fire. But unfortunately, Even though far targets were destroyed, it does not mean that Russia will stop launching drones anytime soon. That's why Ukraine also came up with brand new Shahed-specific type interceptors. The modern warfare does not get more precise than that, right? A very specific countermeasure for a very specific weapon. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. If there is one thing Putin loves, it's turning war into an industrial assembly line while making sure that the population thinks this is the most urgent and necessary budget expenditure. Not like social programs or whatever. The Shahed 136 is the perfect example. Cheap to build, easy to mass produce, and deadly when launched in bulk. Western media estimates each cost between $20,000 and $50,000, making them the dollar store cruise missile of choice. And while Ukraine's air defense have gotten better at shooting them down, Moscow has figured out the ugly math. If you send 500 drones at once, some will always get through. In July alone, for example, Russia sent over 6,200 Shaheds into Ukrainian skies. The first week of August, another 355. It is a relentless pace designed to exhaust Ukrainian air defenses and burn through their most expensive missiles. You don't need to be a military strategist to see the trap. Patriots, for example, cost 4 million per shot. IRIS-T is about 400,000 euros. Fire too many, and you're not just running out of missiles, you're running out of money. That's where Ukraine's new answer comes in. Interceptor drones costing as little as only $1,000. These interceptors are not some sci-fi dream. They're here already, they are fast, and they are hitting targets now. Winged or copter style, piloted in real time, they can race up to 330 km per hour, catch up to Shaheds flying at 200 km per hour, and either smash into them or just blow up nearby. Ukrainian companies like General Cherry, along with military tech consultants like Serhiy Beskresnov, are turning air defense into low-cost, high-impact game. Volunteer groups have been making and delivering those for over a year. Now, the state is scrambling to scale production to Zelensky's ambitious goal of 1,000 every single day. So in the end, the tables will turn. It will be Russia now spending 50 times more for each attack trying to reach Ukrainian cities. But of course, Russia will not just sit back and keep wasting money. Sure, it will take months for the clumsy war machine to make a pivot in reaching Putin's friends in the meantime. But in the end, the counter-solution for a counter-solution will be created. For example, they are already testing Shaheds with jet engines. Faster, harder to intercept, but also pricier and more complex to build. And they are adjusting tactics, maneuvering to make interceptors' job harder. This is the new arms race. Not nukes, not tanks, not submarines, but a deadly dance of drones chasing drones. And in this war of numbers, the winner is not the one with the most expensive toys. It is the one who can keep building faster than the other side can destroy. With the biggest difference is that Russia mostly has to rely on its own military minds to push the limits of this drone warfare, while Ukraine has the support of almost the entire developed world. Countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany and Finland are contributing greatly towards finding the best and the most cost-efficient responses possible. And speaking about the US, on August 15th there will be a meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska, which by many people is considered to be a danger to Ukraine, even though the supposed goals are completely the opposite. One thing curious for me personally is to see whether Trump will behave the same arrogant with Putin as he did with Zelensky back in February. Will he? What do you think, guys? Let us know down below in the comments. And I'm sure you already heard about this upcoming meeting, but the event is just way too important to ignore it completely. So please guys, allow me to summarize it briefly for you in our next chapter. While Ukrainian drones were turning Russian factories into scrap metal, the political theater moved thousands of kilometers away, to Alaska. Yes, Alaska, that piece of land that's very sensitive to both Russians and Americans. Mostly Russians. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are set to meet there on August 15th, in a location dripping with historic irony. Once Russian territory sold to the US in 1867, now the stage for talks that could decide the fate of modern Ukraine. And here's the catch. Ukraine might not even be in the room when its fate is decided. Trump has been dangling promises of ending the war within 24 hours since before even he returned to the White House. But those promises now come with talk of swapping territories and betterment for both sides, whatever it means. Mostly one side Russian, which is basically diplomatic code for carving up Ukraine like a real estate deal. His aides say Zelensky might join later, but for now it's just Trump and Putin. And while Trump claims a ceasefire deal is very close, the details sound like Moscow's Christmas wish list. Keep Crimea, take Donbass, trade away Kherson and Zaporizhzhia and just call it a peace. With the little caveat of potentially invading once again later. European leaders are also scrambling to insert themselves into the conversation, holding emergency virtual meetings, demanding that no deal be made without Ukraine, it makes sense, and pushing Trump to pressure Putin harder. But behind the political statements lies genuine fear that Trump, eager for a foreign policy win, will give away more than he realizes, trusting a man who has made a career out of breaking deals the moment they stop benefiting him. For Putin, mind you, Alaska is not just a simple meeting location, it is also a psychological play. The optics scream, we are equal players. But the location says even though we meet on the US soil, we are still close enough to Russia to remind you, we guys are neighbors. And the subtext. If Putin walks away with territory and no real security guarantees for Ukraine, he will have proved that holding out militarily was worth every drone, every missile, every life even. And that Putin was once again the most patient, outplaying every single political leader combined. We guys simply cannot let that happen. While politicians trade insults and draft proposals, the war grinds on across 1,000-kilometer front line. Pokrovsk in Donetsk is under relentless assault as Russia tries to punch into Dnipropetrovsk. Northern Sumy is fending off Russian forces to prevent reinforcements from reaching Donetsk. Zaporizhzhia's defenders are holding the line with the grim determination of soldiers who know there is no fallback plan, only land to lose. Ukrainian commanders on the ground have no illusions. They pretty much say it is impossible to negotiate with the Russians. The only option is to defeat them, for example, says Buda, a drone unit commander in the Spartan Brigade. His words are confirmed if you ask literally anyone sitting in the trenches and dugouts. Russia does not want peace, or I better say Putin does not want peace. He wants submission. Warsaw, another howitzer commander in Zaporizhzhia, puts it even plainer. We are on our land, he says. We have no way out. Every meter of retreat is a meter lost. And these are not just out of context words. They are the daily reality for soldiers facing shortages in manpower, ammunition, and time. And they know that while deep strikes into Russia slow the enemy down, they do not stop the artillery shells falling on Ukrainian towns. Every political maneuver, every potential peace plan that ignores these realities is just background noise to men who measure the war in meters gained or lost, comrades alive or dead. And if Ukraine is forced to bow down to most of Putin's requirements, the question is, was that all for nothing? Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We're very close to 270,000 subscribers, incredible number. If you wish to support our work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims are resolve they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous